Everyone, ¿qué tal todos? Estoy acá desde mi café favorito, Guapalava, en Antiguo Cuscatlán. Que me paguen por hacer el comercial, ¿verdad? Pero bueno, today we're talking, this is workshop 2. When we're talking about poetry, we're talking about the liberty of the translator. No, for real, good coffee. And we'll talk mainly about my book, Juegos de la Memoria, and you can find the link. You can find the link here. But what's interesting about being a translator is the liberty that you have to do certain things. For example, you can translate, you can have complete freedom to translate a given poem whatever way you want, depending on what the editor or what the writer, what the poet thinks about your job, your work. But most writers agree that they do things for the national audience or sometimes for the regional audience. And we, as translators, we take that work into the international, into the universal sphere. Because that's our job, to give an international perspective on somebody's work. For example, my work with Cuento de Barro, with Salarue, into English has given it the international recognition it long deserved. And writers who were also translators, like the Portuguese Saramago or Argentinian Borges, they agree or they propose that the translators should have complete freedom. It's like a blank check. Do whatever you want. This is your job as a translator to make this readable into a different language. If you have full freedom, complete freedom, what would you do? And of course, there will be some that think that poetry is simply untranslatable because it is subject to interpretation. In the book that I have here in the link, you need to understand that I was the writer and I was also the translator. And by the editor, I was given the full freedom. And I wanted to look at this book and look at both versions, English and Spanish, and you will notice certain differences and certain things that I did intentionally. For example, there's a poem that is called Litania de Pecados Caninos, and there's a mistake in the name. And I want to translate the mistake exactly the way in English. And I want you to take a look at that and tell me if you notice that. That is that poem. Another poem that talks about Thanksgiving. How do you translate Thanksgiving into English, into Spanish? There is no right way to translate it. Some people say, oh, it is Día de Acción de Gracias. It is not. Because if you haven't been to a Thanksgiving dinner in the United States, and it's different in Canada, but if you haven't been to a Thanksgiving dinner, then you don't know what really Thanksgiving is. So you have to, for some, is the equivalent to Christmas for us. So you have to pay attention to these little details, and I want you to take a look at these different nuances, and then let me know how in the comments here below how you feel about the ideas that I propose. And also, of course, we want freedom as translators, but we don't want to be like what we were talking about last week, that Humberto Eco said, of course, you're not going to get the original that has 200 pages, and then you're gonna make it 500. That just by looking at it, you know it's not right, right? So it's not that's not the idea for it. Um, and in poetry, you know, that poetry is not just one way, but your emotions are involved. Think of Poema de Amor de Roque Dalton, and how do we translate every little thing that Roque Dalton is saying in that Poema de Amor? Is it really a poem of love, or is it real, or is he doing something else with what we have? So our perception, our emotions are they play a big role in this. As a translator, I want you to understand that you're also a creator. You're not just putting hola, hello, but also giving it a meaning in a different language. I have this, I just wanted to show you that these two books, that this was the translation of Cuento de Barro de Salarre, that, that you've seen before, that we've talked about this before. And uh, this is something that since Salarre was dead, and I had the complete freedom also to do this. But not very many of us will have that right, that liberty, that benefit to have complete freedom. So I took chances, whatever I wanted to do with this. With this one, this was different because this I did not translate it. I was the writer of this book, and I had different translators in different languages. So what you will do now, the idea is that you will take this book in the link that I have here, and tell me and compare English Spanish, and tell me what your idea is, what you think. What is something that I didn't do right? What is something that you should have done differently? Is there something that you think it, that there's a mistake because it doesn't represent the same in English as in Spanish? And also pay attention to the mistakes that I made, the intentional mistakes in English and the intentional mistakes in Spanish as well. Leave the comments here in the section below.